Hey, Happy New Year. Thanks for checking out Radio Chatter as we start up 2017 with another one of my friends, Scott Bartlett from the band Saving Abel, the guitar hero, tattooed, whiskey swilling big guy. You can't miss him up there on stage. And those guys have gone through their trials and tribulations. We talk about playing for the troops. We talk about Jared Weeks leaving the band. We talk about his birthday celebration, which just happened yesterday as you listen to this. Today on Radio Chatter.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1, and liftoff.
This is Radio Chatter with WRIF's own Meltdown.
Yes, happy 2017 right here on the Radio Chatter podcast. I'll tell you what, last year I made the New Year's resolution to you guys. I'll get a podcast a week, and I did that up until I got screwed over by Sebastian Bach. I will never let him forget about that, okay? I was supposed to interview Sebastian Bach, I don't know, the second week of December, had it all set up, came in, sat in my studio on a Wednesday, didn't call. Oh, Sebastian can't do the interview today. All right, fine. He can do it tomorrow. All right, fine. So I came back the next day, Thursday, sat here in my studio, and no one called. Oh, Sebastian can't do the interview today. So, blame him, don't blame me. Anyways, I'll give you the same New Year's resolution this year. I've already got some interviews already lined up. I've already done some interviews, actually, that I have to actually hold on to until concert dates are announced and different things from some pretty big bands. Plus, I've got a small list of like bucket list guests, so to speak, that I tried working on last year. Didn't quite have the success, but I'm not going to give up, and we'll see what happens this year. I'm not going to jinx it by telling you who they are, but let's just say it'll be big. Anyhow, on to today. My friend Scott Bartlett from Saving Abel. Great guy. I've known Scott since about 2008 or so, and we've shared some pretty fun times. We've swilled our share of whiskey. There is no question about that. And just a real good guy. Big, tattooed guitar player. You can't miss him up there on stage. And as I texted him yesterday, I'm like, hey, you want to do my Radio Chatter podcast? He's like, absolutely, but today's my birthday. Can we do it tomorrow? So I said, sure, why not? We'll do it tomorrow. And we started off the conversation by talking about his birthday. First of all, dude, happy birthday, man.
Thank you.
I didn't realize
it was 25 for 14 years.
Right. I was going to say don't look a day over 24, but, you know, what are you going to do? So what'd you do for your birthday yesterday, which people should know was on January 3rd?
Yeah, I had a very uneventful, because I didn't get a chance to go home after this last run we did in December. I had to get some surgery done, so I kind of I grabbed all my shit from the bus. I went home to my house in Memphis, and I took what I thought I needed and flew to Baltimore, got surgery done, and then I flew into a frickin' gig for New Year's. I've been pretty much a road dog, man, so yesterday I sat in my bed and ate pizza, and it was amazing.
Being the health-conscious guy that you are, right?
Oh, yeah. It was like one of those every meat in the book kind of things. Like, I don't know. It was delicious. That's all I have to say. Great birthday all the way around.
There you go. And last time I saw you was over the summertime. You got your tattoo from the infamous Bob Tyrell right here in Detroit. How's that healing up?
Man, it's fantastic. He is such a cool cat, and I really appreciate the intro. He's also a killer guitar player.
Yeah. He plays it the wrong way, though.
Yeah, he does. He's like Hendrix with a weirder issue than him. But he's killer, man. It was he's one of the best tattoo artists in the world, and we're now good friends. So thanks for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. I've yet to get some ink from Bob. We've talked about it several times. He's a hard guy to track down because he's constantly traveling. And right now, I think he's over in Los Angeles or whatever. But yeah, Bob does some great work. And tell everybody what he did on your chest.
So I have this clothing line. And interestingly enough, it's based on my tattoos. So it's called SB Creations, which stands for Scott Bartlett Creations. And I literally take incarnations of my ink and put them on T-shirts, leggings, booty shorts. And I came up with this design because a lot of my designs are loosely based on the rock horns I have on my underarms. When I throw rock horns, I have rock horns tattooed on my underarms. And that's probably been my best seller on booty shorts and tank tops. And I thought, we're a very American patriotic rock and roll band, Saving Abel is. How cool would it be to have Uncle Sam throwing rock horns on a T-shirt? And I've had that shirt out for about a year, and I went in reverse order and asked Bob if he would tattoo Uncle Sam on my left titty, throwing rock horns, and he did it. He told me, man, I love the band. I love your guitar work. Meltdown's a good friend of mine, but I'm really busy for the next 2 years. Can you come to Detroit on July 19th? And I said, yes, I can.
Was that it, July 19th? Yeah. I know. I remember riding my motorcycle out to see out there. I know it was in the summertime, but man, one specific day, that's all he had, huh?
That was it.
Yeah, that's
I made
cool.
it happen. He made it happen, and now I got it on my left titty.
That's awesome because, it's funny. You talk about the booty shorts. Those are probably, as far as you're concerned, your bestseller, right?
Yeah, that and unfortunately, even though it is 2017 now and we're all pretty liberal, you can't wear booty shorts just anywhere. They're more of a around the house kind of thing, especially on certain people, So the tank top tends to do a little better sometimes.
Yeah.
I think that the booty shorts and like the set, if I end up going to like a Hooters or something, the girls go crazy over the booty shorts for sure.
And that they should. Now, you guys, this past summer, it's a good thing that you got in to see Bob on July 19th because you guys are doing the Make America Rock Again tour, which had Trapped and Drowning Pool and Tantric and all these bands. But you guys didn't play every date. Why is that?
We had a lot of dates. We all have different booking agents, and a lot of times when you do various tours, the booking agencies try to lock in, and sometimes it's all got to be through the same agent or the same management or the same label because it's more cohesive. And we all had different agents, so we all had other gigs at different intermittent times, and we did the best we could. But sometimes we just had to go where the money was.
Yeah.
And that wasn't just us. That was every other band as well. So we missed the show in Detroit, which I felt really bad about.
Yeah, that was kind of cool. I'd never been to Shane Park before, and it was on the waterfront. It was kind of a different there's not too many rock shows at that place, so it was kind of cool to get down there and see that. But that tour, of course, went through on this summer, and then you guys were doing all sorts of other tours. You got tours coming up already starting in January. You guys just never stop, huh?
You know what's kind of cool, honestly, bro? We finally got a little bit of a break. We're taking off. I mean, we got like 4 shows in January and 4 in February just to kind of keep up our chops. And we're going out with Puddle of Mud and Tantric in March. That should be a pretty cool run.
That could be interesting.
But, yeah, that's all I can say. I've had promoters. I've had people call me. I've had people, you know what my favorite is? Hey, bro, I'm calling you as a friend, not as a promoter. And I'm like, oh, God, do not put me in that spot. Like, what do you think? What do you think? Should I book it or not? And I'm like, am I the only person you're asking? Because I don't know what's going to happen either. I just know that, worst case, if Wes isn't there, like maybe Saving Abel will just learn about 2 or 3 Puddle of Mud songs, and we'll just try to save the day. We'll see. I love Wes to death, and I really hope he's doing well.
Well, I was talking to somebody on the podcast who we both know, and I'm not going to say his name because I'm not sure if it was on the podcast or on the tour bus. Sometimes it tends to mix itself in. But I was talking to somebody, and they said, you know what? You can say what you want about Wes, but the shows are sold out.
People love to see it, man. They don't know what they're going to get.
Right.
And that's great. I mean, that's just good rock and roll, man. Some of us are still in it for the right reasons, and there's something the one thing on the artist side is that you never want to let the fans down. And just not showing up or being a little too fucked up to play, that's one thing, being messed up and everything. But, not showing up, that's kind of a rough pill to swallow. And I've told him, I'm like, man, I don't appreciate when you do that. And he's told me how he feels about it too. But it's just one of those things. He's a little bit off sometimes, but that's rock and roll, man. And hopefully he makes it up whenever he can't do a show. And I remember those old school rock and roll days when you never knew who was going to show up, if it was going to be somebody completely off their rocker or somebody who was just, praising Jesus from the hills. I like it all, as long as it's done in the name of rock and roll.
Now, has there been shows where you guys have shown up and weren't sure if you were going to be able to play?
Man, there's been shows where I don't remember seeing you before I went on. And then you'll send me a picture, and I'm like, oh, my God, why is my face so red? You know? I did an interview not too long ago where somebody asked about Addicted, and I was like, man, there's about 3 years there where I don't remember playing Addicted because it's always the last song.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just, but, you know, I know how to play those songs drunk, so I don't care. I know the fans like the honesty of, like, the drunk rocker, the reckless abandon, you know, the train is always about to fall off the tracks, but you always find a way to save it, and that's what Saving Abel does.
Now, I talked with Chris Henderson last year, and I talked with Matt Dorito as well from Pop Evil, two guys I'm sure you know, and both of them have gone through rehab, and they talked about it extensively on my podcast. It was really cool. Is there? I mean, I know you guys have. There's been members of your band that went through to rehab and stuff like that. How do you keep the train on the track?
It's really tough when you're. For one, we're a ass-kicking Southern rock band that's known for drinking whiskey. You know, really, like, you know, drugs have never been this band's thing. It's always been kind of a booze thing. And you got to try to keep it in check. It's not always easy because your demons are always out there. We typically maintain the position that we're strong enough as men to be able to say no and not go to rehab. And sometimes you have a little too much and you're humbled and reminded that maybe you need that kick in the ass to tell you to, you know, go do something right. I'm on my way to my parents right now in Tupelo, Mississippi, and I'm going on a juice cleanse, you know. Like, I just, sometimes you got to do things to kind of maintain your health, you know, but we, you know, and I very much, after talking to Chris and Matt, you know, those are both friends of mine, and those are both great rock and roll bands. They told me, they're like, we admire you because we couldn't get it together. We had to. And I was like, that's the way you view me? Like, I've got it together? You know, it's a struggle for me, too. And it might come to that point where I personally have to go to, like, a rehab. But for right now, I think I'm able to tread the line. But it's still not easy at times, you know, and you got to think about your health first because none of us are getting any younger.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of think of myself kind of in the same way where I have a faucet and I can actually shut it off, you know, but I know guys, and, you know, Matt admitted to me on the podcast that he was one of those guys that once the faucet's open, it's open and it doesn't shut off, you know?
Yeah, that's tricky, man. You know, you don't want to, when you're in rock and roll, you don't want to go out and have, you know, 2 high-end beers at the local frickin' emporium or whatever. Like, you want to have 22 beers and get in trouble. You know, it's not Saving Abel's in town. It's Saving Abel's in town. That's the thing. I mean, but, you know, it's different for everybody. And I've found a lot of people that get on the severe sober kick, they end up with another addiction, like fitness or something. And if you've got to pick your vice, you'll probably live longer if you do the fitness thing, but you might also write songs that are different. I mean, it affects everybody differently, but I think ultimately whatever makes people happy, keeps them healthy, that's what's best.
Yeah, it is funny because both Matt and Chris both admitted to, you know, being addictive. And I've talked to other rock stars, which will remain nameless because it wasn't on my podcast, where they're totally 100% addicted to drugs or alcohol. And all of a sudden they get off it and they become addicted, like you said, to fitness. That happens a lot. So,
because it's tricky out there, man. You really need to cling to a vice. You got a lot of downtime on tour. What are you supposed to do?
Yeah, I was going to say, you just opened up a whole other Pandora's box. So you're out there, you're touring, you know, state to state, city to city and whatnot. What kind of stuff do you do to fill the time after, you know, in the morning time when you wake up after a show?
For me, it's always been the fitness thing. I like to try to, you know, I'm one of the ones that actually wakes up early in the morning, and I tend to do a lot of business for the band. You know, I'll be on the phone with the agent or on the phone with if we're with a label, which we're not at the time, talking to management. And then I'll work with my clothing line, working on different designs. You know me, I've always got my hand in a lot of hats, and I think that's one of the things that keeps me busy to where I'm not day drinking or popping a bunch of pills. And I'll typically go out and, you know, I might go for a jog and be on my cell phone at the same time. And I got my earbuds in with my hoodie up, and I'm in a strange city, and I'm just a big tatted guy that looks like he's talking to himself running.
Right.
It's awesome. Great visual. But, yeah, you know, I mean, that's that for me works best. You just find certain ways to try to keep yourself busy, or you can just stay in bed. That's another thing to do, but I don't tend to go that route.
Yeah. Hey, take me back to the beginning of Saving Abel, when you guys were just starting out and stuff. I guess I think I read on Wikipedia or something that Jared would throw CDs on the stage of bands that were playing in your hometown or whatnot and try to get noticed. Is that true?
Yeah, and he didn't tell me that before I joined. I think if I'd known that, I probably wouldn't have. Honestly, I used to tell him that. No, he did. Those guys are idols, and they're even bigger idols and icons down here where we're from. That most certainly did happen. That was well before anything. We hadn't even written Addicted yet.
Which guys are you talking about that are idols? Just bands that would come through town, or was there certain bands?
I'm talking about Three Doors Down.
Okay, Three Doors. Okay.
Yeah, when they would come through town, that was always Jared's idol. Actually, him and Brad, like that, their voices are eerily similar.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned, I never thought about it. You're right.
Yeah, they're very similar, and that was why when we had a lineup change with Scotty, we decided to flip entirely and go with that sort of raspy, kind of grungier, uglier, grittier, rock and roll sound instead of like the robust sort of baritone bluesy thing. And it was a shock to a lot of fans, but they've definitely come around, so that's good. That could have backfired.
So when you guys first started, Jared's throwing CDs and stuff up on the stage and stuff, and how did that work? Did you guys get recognized or noticed by anybody, or what happened?
No, man. I mean, it did.
The bands would use them as beer coasters?
We're always asked, one of the common questions you hear is, if you're going to talk to upcoming bands, what would you say to whatever? I would not encourage throwing CDs on stage. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't do shit. It just makes you get kicked out of the place. So the band's going to be like, you fucking idiot. Yeah. Nobody listens to CDs anymore. Yeah.
You really can't throw a digital download on stage, I suppose. But, do you know how Wesley from Puddle of Mud got recognized? Did you ever hear his story? Well, he made a fake backstage pass for the local radio station in Kansas City there. And he got backstage and got his CD to like Fred Durst or something like that. And I interviewed him one time 10, 12 years ago. And he told me he still has that fake backstage pass in this paperback Bible he keeps in his back pocket. So
wait, I have heard that. That's true?
Yeah, that's what he told me, yeah.
Oh, my God, that's awesome, man. I mean, I guess, dear God, rock and roll needs stories like that. I'm just glad to know it's true.
Yeah. So the CD thing doesn't work. So how do you guys get discovered down there in what part of Mississippi are you from?
Well, okay. I just left Memphis, Tennessee, which is sort of like in the southern westmost corner of Tennessee.
Okay.
So I border 3 states. I'm in Tennessee, and I border Arkansas, and I border Mississippi. So northeastern Mississippi, Corinth, Mississippi, is where the 2 remaining co-founders, other than myself, Eric Taylor and Jason Null, live.
Right.
And that's where the band started, between them and myself in Memphis, Tennessee. And Scotty and Steven live in Jackson, Tennessee, which is halfway between Memphis and Nashville.
Okay.
So we're all about 70 miles away from each other. It's sort of like a triangle.
So you guys start out back in the day, and you're playing around, how do you pronounce it? Caruth? How do you say it?
Corinth. If you want to say it with the southern draw, it's Corinth.
Oh, Corinth. Okay, so you guys are playing around there. I mean, I got to imagine there's not many big rock concert places down there to play, or southern rock. Is there? I don't know.
Well, it's really interesting. Memphis is a very iconic rock town.
Memphis, sure, yeah.
And Memphis is just a huge music city. And when I was coming up the ranks, I had made a name for myself doing a lot of session work, and I was once billed like the hardest working musician in Memphis, which is weird because all I was doing was getting drunk and fucked up and playing, but I was playing every single night.
Right.
And I was in like 6 bands at the same time, You remember Egypt Central? I was in that band for like a week.
I do remember that band, yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I was always bouncing around in different bands, but it got really hard for any band to establish any name recognition when you can't have a full-on lineup. But when you're paying your bills by playing music, you got to go, where the money's at. And I had a pretty solid Rolodex of clubs and musician friends and just a lot of people. So when I met the guys from Corinth, Mississippi. I had Memphis on lockdown as far as places to play, and Corinth is so small that they've got like 3 places you could foreseeably play, and there's nothing to do there. At the time, you couldn't even buy whiskey in that town. Now you can, thank God.
Yeah, thank God. I was going to say, how did you survive? So anyways.
So we would go up there sometimes, and then it'd be like every other weekend we would come down my way into Memphis, and then I had been touring pretty extensively with a bunch of bands that you've never heard of, but I had contacts in the tri-state area, and I'd get us out of town. We didn't have an agent. We didn't have management. It was just myself and Jason kind of doing everything. And we caught the attention through the beginnings of MySpace. You can remember back that far.
Yep.
Through our mutual friend Rick Smith and Scott Frazier. And they actually drove down and saw us. And we were signed about, I don't know, there was a little bit of red tape involved, but 3 weeks later to Virgin Capitol Records. So we got to sign a record deal there where the Beatles signed. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. It's been a hell of a decade. I can't wait to have a big enough fight with the guys to where I write the tell-all book.
Hey, so you guys signed the record deal, and then 3 weeks later, like you say, and then you guys record the debut record, and you get some pretty good success off of that record with "Addicted" in 18 Days and stuff like that. And you guys start to tour the country, and things really started to percolate, huh?
Yeah, we had. It's really funny. You hear a lot of times you get a lifetime to write your first record,
right?
And then if you're lucky enough to have a hit, you got 2 months to write your follow-up. That kind of happened to us. It took us, after I met Jason and Jared and Eric, we had about 20 songs that took us forever to write and cultivate and finish because the production was so solid, because Skid Mills, our producer, had signed the band to a production deal, like a spec deal. And I already knew what a spec deal was. The guys from Corinth did not know what a spec deal was. But in Memphis, a spec deal means don't spec nothing, because you don't expect jack or shit to come out of it. And it means the producer protects himself by basically donating his time and resources by saying, if you do get a hit, I will be paid a shit ton of money, which he did, and he was smart. He's still one of our great friends to this day. He ended up doing the follow-up records, too. Tremendous engineer. But we came out with that record, and we were the hot ticket. I mean, you remember when it hit.
Right.
Addicted just wouldn't go away. And then while we were working 18 Days as a single at Active Rock, Top 40 picked up Addicted. And that made y'all over at Active go, well, now hold the fuck on. We found this band.
Right.
We're going to pick Addicted back up. So we basically competed with ourselves on the charts with Addicted in 18 Days. So at one point, I think we held 3 and 4 on Active Rock with Addicted in 18 Days. And then 18 Days its tenure was kind of hindered by Addicted, which is funny. And then when they both finally went away, I mean, we worked Addicted for like a year on the charts. We had Drowning to follow up. And that was a really cool song, because a lot of people tell me, they're like, this is a really nice thing to say to somebody like me. They were like, you helped bring back the guitar solo, because that song had a 35-second guitar solo in it. And it kind of proved that we weren't just a bunch of hacks who played to a bunch of tracks. Like, we were just some ass-kicking Southern rockers that like to play hard and, go out and do what we do. And so the record had a lot of depth because we had some time to write it. And we had 3 top 5s, which really doesn't happen. We flipped a 360 deal, which I can't get into what that means, but there's only 3 bands in the history of time that have done it. We were one of them. So the label was really impressed, and they continued to work, and we took some time off and worked on the next record. And they kept saying, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, because that's what they do. It's about money, which I understand now. I didn't back then. But that record, Miss America, did have some great songs on it. Most notably, Sex is Good was a #1.
I thought the title track was fantastic. I told you that years ago.
Yeah. Contagious was a great song. Miss America,
right?
I think #7 at Active Rock. And then Stupid Girl went #5, which of all people, LeJean from Seven Dust told me that's his favorite song ever.
Really?
I was like, what? It's like slow and not heavy at all. He's like, yo, man, that's me and my wife's song. I'm like, all right, carry on, you know. So we got 3 singles out of that one, and you know, it's really hard to tell the abridged version, honestly, because it's been a whirlwind. But that record did not have quite as much success, but it was also at the same time as people were figuring out how to steal music at the time that our first record came out. And by the time the second record came out, and I'm not bitching, I'm just telling you how it is, they had figured it out. And so album sales really suffered. And they continue to do that, and people are finding creative ways to get around it, as are we. But we've watched it kind of. It's not that our music has suffered. I don't think in any way. It's just that a lot of bands have done the same thing that we did, where they came out with a smash, and then they've had a lot of people saying, "Where's the next one? Where's the next one?" Because it's a business. It's supply and demand. Everybody wants more music. Everybody wants to feed that cash cow, you know. But when you take away all the time that it takes to write a truly great record, I mean, how long do you think it took Pink Floyd to write Dark Side of the Moon?
Right.
3.5 years. And I'm not saying we've written the Dark Side of the Moon, but I'm saying with 3.5 years, you'd be surprised what we could do.
Yeah, but then on the flip side, there's some records where the guys write them in about 2 weeks, and they get monster hits off them. You know, I mean, but Dark Side of the Moon, of course, is a totally different animal. But you hear about that all the time, where a band like, you know, well, we had 3 weeks to get in there and get out, and you know, like a Black Sabbath or something. You know what I'm saying? So that's funny.
And those raw sounds are so great. We just don't really get to hear them as often anymore.
Yeah,
everything's very produced, and we're hoping to get our next record to be surprisingly unproduced. I kind of wanted to do a garage record. I was unanimously outvoted, so that's not going to happen.
So you got Saving Abel, and you got Miss America, then Bringing Down the Giant, in your latest Bloodstained Revolution, which came out a couple years ago. But in between there, Jared decides he's going to leave. So what can you tell us about that?
Well, he just, you know, it's discouraging, everything I just told you about when you have that much success. And I've always told you, you know, and everybody, you know, you've been with us since day one, brother, you know, but we are open books at Saving Abel. So there's nothing that you can't ask us, because we find that truth resonates better than anything. So, and there's a vulnerability aspect to this whole thing where it was really tough to lose Jared. And I'm comfortable talking about it, but I wasn't at first, but I was just, you know, open book, like, here we go. And ultimately it came down to family for him. You know, he had 2 extra mouths to feed, and the money wasn't coming in like it used to. And it was harder and harder to find creative ways to get the music out there. And I think that he folded under the pressure. And he ultimately chose family over music, over rock music anyway. He tried briefly for a country career, and I think he's thrown the towel in on that, because that's equally difficult, you know, and nobody can fault him for it, you know. And that was, you know, we had a very heartfelt sort of, man, I really hope it goes well for you, but we're not going to hang it up. We got too many fans. We don't want to let them down. So we just kept the torch burning, and here we are 3 years later.
Yeah, I was talking to one of my friends who's a guitar player in a pretty well-known band, and he said that, he goes, you know, I could leave, the drummer, the bass player could leave, but when the singer leaves, that's a whole nother animal. You know, that could, he kind of like holds all the cards. Did you find that might have been true at the time? Or did you think that anyways?
Dude, we were scared shitless. I mean, our manager at the time, literally, and you know, you have to listen to your manager, because ultimately what else do you pay him for? You know,
right.
They're there to advise you. They're there to advise you. And when the advice really sucks and they're resoundingly wrong enough times, that's when you fire them and get a new manager.
Right.
But he was like, here's what we're going to do. We are going to merge your band with this band, and we're not going to tell anybody. We're just going to go finish these dates that you have for the year and stay out on tour. And we were like, really? That's your big plan? And out of the gate, there were plenty of haters. And again, like I said, because let's be honest, Scotty and Jared sound completely different. You know what I mean? So, people want to hear Jared's voice on Addicted. They want to hear him and just a guitar on 18 Days. That's what they want. But we opted to not go that route. And there were plenty of haters. But like I said, they pretty much all come around and they're waiting on some new music. But it was tough going into the unknown. We rehearsed like 3 times, dude. And then we just went out and did the damn thing. First show was sold out at the Machine Shop. And it's been an uphill climb, but we haven't stayed stagnant yet. We're still climbing. We're playing bigger rooms. We're still able to do this and provide for our families. So I guess ultimately I can't complain.
Now, is it true that you guys told Scott Austin you didn't ask him to be in the band? You told him he was in the band?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, he actually, man, funny story. He came to my house. I'd never even met the cat. I talked to him on the phone, and he was going to come over to rehearse the tunes. And that was when Jared called me while that was going on. And Jared knew Scotty was taking his place. And Jared canceled the last 3 shows that we had before Christmas. Something had come up family style. And the thing is, I didn't know Scotty. But, when you're on tour and you're in a band with somebody, you're like brothers. You love each other, but you fucking hate each other, too. And obviously, I wasn't too impressed with Jared at the time of his quitting. So I let him have it on the phone, man. I was, like, screaming at him, and he was screaming back. And then I forgot Scotty was at my house. I was just, like, red in the face. My carotid was throbbing, And I walk into my den, and he was, like, in the fetal position on a chair in my living room. Like, stop it. Can't you guys get along? And he was like, man, did he really just quit, like, the last shows? He's like, I know I'm getting the gig, but what are you going to, and it was an interesting time. Let's just put it that way. But there's something that's really exhilarating about the unknown. It's equally terrifying, but we made it.
Yeah, and here we are in 2017, getting ready to kick off another tour. You guys got some stuff in the works as far as another record coming up here this year?
Man, I wrote what I thought was the coolest song the other day, but I was told I said the word bitch too much. And we've written a lot of really good stuff, and I think we're just kind of thinking about who to go with as far as capturing the sound. We got a couple of fish on the hook as far as the proper producer. I don't think we want to self-produce it. I think we want somebody to kind of hone in, and we've got a lot of cooks in the kitchen, as always. Rather have somebody kind of cultivate us and tell us which ideas completely suck and what sound to go for, but we don't want to chase trends. We want to be a southern rock and roll band that's got high-gain guitars and big hooks.
I know a producer right here in Michigan you might be able to go with.
Oh, yeah? I love him to death, man.
Yeah, our friend Chuck Elkazian from Pearl Sound Studio. That's another story. But yeah, it's I know you've worked with Chuck out here in Michigan doing some other projects, haven't you? Or what have you done? Session work for him?
I just texted him. Yeah, I've done some stuff, and he and I wrote together. One track that he helped me cut ended up making my EP. Interestingly enough, I had Jared sing it.
Oh, is that right?
But, yeah, I did. Called Gypsy Soul. And I actually texted him, I'm gonna be in town doing some appearances in Detroit, February 2nd to 6th. I was going to hit you up when I knew for a fact where I'm going to be. But
for sure.
Get ready for it.
All right.
I'm hitting you up for some shots of whiskey.
There you go. Hey, I'll never turn down a shot of bourbon. That's for sure. But hey, a couple things here real fast before we let you go. And Scott, I really appreciate the time. Tell me about playing for the troops overseas and what that means to you and the guys. I know you're just like me. You're a patriot. You appreciate the troops.
Well, it's I've started getting mad when bands they claim to love the troops, but I know for a fact that they turn down things because it's not as lucrative as they think it'll be. I'm not going to name names, but that's not what that's about. You're not doing that to make money. I mean, yeah, you've got to cover your end. It's still a business, but we're Americans here. And these guys go over there and they work their asses off, man, and they sacrifice everything for nothing, just for democracy, just for the sake of democracy and for what we stand for as Americans. And so they don't ask us for anything either. And it's not like they get anything when they come back. And this all started when we were, very much at war. They needed to know that American soil was doing okay without them there, and their families were doing okay, and they wanted a taste of what it was like, and they deserve entertainment as much as anybody. So they'd ask us to go over there, and we just said yes every time, and it turned into this sort of symbiotic relationship where it was just very mutual. Like, we have mutual admiration and respect for each other. So we ended up getting to go to Iraq, Qatar, Kuwait, Japan, done the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, the Walter Reed Hospital. Had to play 18 days next to a 19-year-old kid. Didn't even need to shave yet. He didn't have any limbs. We start playing 18 days, and him and his fiance and his parents just start crying. And it's me, Jared, and Jason, and all we had to do was get through the song without crying, and none of us could do it. We all just stopped and started crying. But then it turned into a really emotional sort of handhold, prayer, and here's to getting better, and here's to a thing that Saving Abel writes a lot about, which is just kind of getting up and dusting yourself off when times are tough. Hope. You should always have hope, and that's the message we try to give to the troops every time we go over there. You will get through this tenure, and you will get back, and life will resume. And quite honest, I'm not going to get into it too much, but I really wish we'd take better care of our military, and I'm hoping that's the case.
Yeah, there you go. Well, listen, Scott, I've had some great memories and some great times hanging out with you. I remember Michigan Speedway. I remember the storm we went through here in Royal Oak when Brett Michaels was playing. Just a couple of the things we've done in the past, and I'll never forget at Michigan Speedway, amongst other things. But my dad was there, and my dad thought, here's my son, the big shot radio guy, can't even get me a seats at the race because he's like, "Where's my seat?" I go, "Dad, you have a pass on. You can go wherever you want to go." He tells one of Ryan Newman's pit guys, he's like, "There's my kid, the big shot. I don't have seats," while he's sitting on pit road wall. I'm like, "Dad, you can go wherever you want to go." And then I took him up into your guys' suite, and I had to go do something else. So I come back about a half hour later, and I say to Rick Smith, I go, "Where's my dad?" He goes, "He's next door." And there's my dad sitting there in his suite all by himself and nobody else in it with his headphones on watching the race. I'm like, "Are you happy now?" He goes, "Well, I'd be happier if I had a Pepsi." So
that's awesome, man. I actually remember that. That was a long time ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. I'm gonna say 7-8 years ago, something like that. But man, that was a blast. But I remember weathering that storm here in Royal Oak. That big, huge summer storm blew through, and we were in one of those trailers. And I'm thinking to myself the whole time, I hope this trailer doesn't flip over or blow apart or something. But we made it through that.
You know what? Yep, we're still here to talk about it today, so here's to that.
That's right. Well, listen, man, I'll see you when you come through the Motor City in early February, and I see you guys got a date at Harpo's on March 25th, so we'll tell everybody about that as well. And thanks so much for the time, my brother, and safe travels.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man.
Scott Bartlett from Saving Abel today on Radio Chatter. Got to thank him so much for being the first guest of 2017 and a great guest. I love talking to my friends like that, especially when there's no time constraints. A lot of times when some of these bands call, it's set up by the record companies and labels and whatever else. And it's like, yeah, you got, 8 minutes or something. I'm like, okay, that's not a lot of time, but okay. Anyways, Scott driving down to see his parents, like you mentioned, and we had a little bit of time and got into a few things, and there's still a lot of things that I want to get into. He did mention his surgery back at the beginning, and I didn't want to ask him about it because I didn't know if he really wanted to talk about it, but let's just say he's doing well. I guess he had it a week or so ago, and I guess the thing that sucks about it is he told me he couldn't work out for 8 weeks. So, but anyways, he's back on the mend and back on a stage near you sometime in the future. Check out their website, savingable.com, for all the tour dates coming up. As like you mentioned, they start up back again in January with 4 shows and on and on. In the meantime, thanks so much for checking out Radio Chatter. We'll do it all over again next week.
I've seen life